talk a little bit about the student. So first and foremost, what would the ideal student look like when they first inquire about MMI, right? Maybe they're a high school graduate, or they're soon to graduate from high school. You got people coming from all over the country, and like you said before, all over the world, Japan, Australia. What does the normal person look like that wants to enter this field and get some formal education before they enter the actual workforce in a dealership?
Well, it really kind of runs the gamut. I've identified three pretty distinct groups of students.
Okay.
On one end of the spectrum, you've got the students that, they've been wrenching on bikes most of their life. They've raced motocross, they've maybe even worked in a small shop, and they what they lack is those credentials to kind of take that career to the next level. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, small percentage, you've got the ones that have probably never picked up a wrench in their life, or maybe they've tinkered with it and they say, oh, that's kind of cool, but it wasn't quite their cup of tea yet. But doctors, lawyers, software engineers, housewives, I interviewed a young lady out of Minnesota that she grew up around bikes, only girl in the family, had three brothers, her dad, they all rode, and she would hang out in the garage and help them and hand them tools and stuff. And she just became fascinated by that. And she turned out to be great, ended up going to work in a dealership. And I think last time I heard, this was many years ago, but last time I heard she ended up in her own shop, so you don't actually have to have a whole lot of knowledge. You got to have that desire to want to learn, so we can teach anybody how to do this job, but we can't teach you to like it. So that's number one. You got to love motorcycles, power sports, whether it's jet skis and four-wheelers and side-by-sides or dirt bikes, regardless, you got to like it. If they have some previous experience working around vehicles, any kind of engines, they took shop classes, that's a plus. It's not a requirement. But they have to be open to learning new things. And they have to be willing to follow the rules, be punctual, be professional. It all carries over to the dealership environment when they're done.
I want to, since you brought up shop class in high school, just sharing from my own perspective, that's how I ultimately got introduced to it. I was on the latter part of the people that you described that typically come in, right? I did not have a lot of experience with power sports or motorcycles until I was older, later in high school, or even automotive fixing, becoming a mechanic later on, until I took a shop school because my buddy was in it. But Mike Rowe, from Dirty Jobs, he's always been an advocate of trade schools. And I just want to give a quote that he said, and he says it verbatim like this: in a very general way, our society has fallen out of love with the skilled trade. Part of the problem is a myriad of myths and misconceptions that surround the jobs themselves, but the biggest cause is our stubborn belief that a 4-year degree is the best path for most people. Happiness does not come from a job. And this was in an interview that he's talking about the systematic removal of a lot of these high school programs like shop class or wood shop class or auto club, whatever it is, right? And really, they're just trying to push people into that 4-year degree because that's what a lot of these institutions prefer. And so I wanted to touch on that because I put that on our notes today, and I thought it very relevant to this conversation, that we're teaching people a skilled job and they have to kind of have a slight introduction into it first before they ever take the first step into buying into the trade school, right? Or getting some type of program to enter it in. So I just want to sidestep that real quick. I thought it was a really neat quote, that was applicable to this
Mike
conversation.
Rowe, we love Mike Rowe.
Yeah.
We absolutely love him. Actually, one of my students recently got a $4,500 scholarship from them. And then because Mike Rowe actually has it's called the work ethic scholarship, and they have to work for it. I mean, they have to produce a video and all that stuff and go through the process. But
yeah,
if they're willing to do that, they're probably a pretty good candidate.
I love that.
And then one thing I forgot to mention, so we got that small group on the one end that thinks they know everything, already, and then you got the ones on the other end that understand and realize that they don't know anything and they want to learn it. But the ones in the middle, that's probably the biggest group. Those are the ones that maybe they ride or they've ridden in the past. They haven't done much. Maybe they've changed the oil, changed tires, spark plugs, that kind of stuff. But they got a great sense of satisfaction out of that. And they're like, man, this is cool. This is fun. I could see myself doing this, for the next 20 years or, the rest of my life. And that's probably the biggest group, but they're all ages. I mean, I have 17, 18-year-olds coming in the program. I just had two 63-year-olds graduate from the program. Yeah,
Wow.
retired Chicago cop, and the other one's a retired heavy equipment operator, and they want to work on bikes for the rest of their life. So I'm like, hey, let's have at it, man. Let's do it. And
I love that.
and both of those 63-year-olds had job offers in their pocket when they got out of here. So
Wow. And
yeah,
that's a skill that they'll retain forever, and they'll use it professionally or personally in whatever type of capacity they want, because that's just something that's ingrained into you once you learn it.
and it makes them happy.
Yeah.
And happy, that's something you can't put a price on. Yeah, I need a paycheck. We all need paychecks because we got bills to pay and that kind of stuff. But for most of our motorcycle guys, I mean, that's important. Don't get me wrong. I don't want
Yep.
to give the dealers a wrong idea. You can hire a guy and not pay him anything and he'll be happy. No, he still has to make a living to support his family, but it's not the most important thing. They're
Yeah.
doing this because they want to do something where they get to use their hands and their brains and do something that's actually meaningful to them. So
Absolutely. Let's keep talking about the techs that we're churning out of this school. So you've got a couple different programs from what I understand. How do you separate the motorcycle versus the off-road stuff, right? You mentioned earlier ATVs and side-by-sides
mm-hmm.
are, they've just exploded in the last couple years, right? And they're coming out with some really great stuff from Polaris. Can-Am on over the weekend just announced the new Maverick R. That's a completely new chassis, new suspension setup. It's getting a lot of love. It's also getting a lot of hate, but we've definitely got an off-road part of the business and we've got an on-road part of the business, right? Harley would fall into that on-road, very much motorcycle only.
Right.
And you got brands that sell both. And then you've got the Marine and PWC. How do you set up the learning stages? Is it one or the other? Do they learn all of them? What's your average tech looking at when they walk into your school and they have to pick from the options available?
Okay. So we start that process well before they actually show up to start their training. So it starts with an inquiry. They'll go online or they'll pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, I want to get some more information about this and what do you do? And we actually go through a little bit of an introduction of the school, but then we actually set them up with in a Zoom meeting, and I'll spend an hour and a half with that student and any of their family members, like mom, dad, or wife or girlfriend, because everybody's going to be affected by this decision that they make.
Yeah.
So we'll spend upwards of an hour to an hour and a half just interviewing them, showing them the training. And at that time, we actually pick out the brands that they want to do. So they actually, if a Harley guy wants to do Harley, we sign them up for Harley. And then 2 or 3 months down the road, they show up and they're going into Harley.
Okay.
Okay. And vice versa. But since we're factory sponsored by the Honda, Cowie, Suzuki, Yamaha, Harley, BMW, anything power sports related that company offers for sale at the dealership or that they're working on in their shop, we're training on. So the Honda guys get generators, mopeds and scooters, four-wheelers, side-by-sides. The Kawasaki guys get the diesel side by sides, the Terex side by sides, the supercharged jet skis, the 310 horsepower jet skis so that's all part of the Kawasaki power sports package. Suzuki, all of their, two-wheelers, four-wheelers, they don't have side by sides and all that, but we get into all of that with all the different manufacturers. Yamaha, in addition to all of their dirt bikes and sport bikes and side-by-sides and four-wheelers. We do snowmobiles for Yamaha
Yes.
here in the desert, So anything that dealer would need worked on, or what they would sell at the dealership that customer needs to get fixed, then these guys are going to get trained on it. And they're not, we separate out Marine's a separate program altogether. It's boats. Okay. Inboard, outboard, that kind of stuff. That's down in Florida. We do have a motorcycle location down in Florida as well, but there's only 2 locations. We do in Arizona and Orlando, Florida. So, students from those geographic areas can take the training.
Okay. And how long is your typical course if they pick 1 or 2 of these different ways to go?
So the minimum, the shortest program is 48 weeks, which takes about 11 to 12 months to complete that. Okay. And if they're doing Harley, they get Harley. So, for instance, we'll spend the first 18 weeks just doing general motorcycle mechanics, where they're learning how to take an engine apart, put it back together, identify the components, get into the parts computer, let's look up the parts. Then they move on to a 3-week class on wheels, tires, brakes, chassis, suspension, lacing spokes, truing wheels, computerized tire mounting systems. So we have all these 3-week classes leading up to that. After they're done with the core training, then they jump off into their specific manufacturers. And Harley-Davidson is 24 weeks just by itself. And that's called late model Harley. So that's the new stuff. Basically, it's everything from current, 23, 24 models going back about 20 years.
Wow.
Okay. Then they will jump off into a 3-week class on the old vintage Harleys from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, getting a good understanding of how the motor company evolved to this point, and you actually get into they actually wrench on antique motorcycles from way back when.
Really?
Then they'll have a 3-week course. Yeah, they'll have a 3-week course called Screaming Eagle, where they get into the dyno jet, building performance, building torque, building horsepower, and then testing it out, making sure that the modifications we've done are going to work. Okay. Now, so that's the 48-week Harley program. Now, if they choose the others, so Honda, Cowie, Suzuki, Yamaha, BMW, they're all 12 weeks each. Okay. So the student actually spends a good solid 3 months in just doing that brand. So they pick 2 of them. So a real popular option, a lot of guys are doing Honda, Yamaha, for example. We're getting a lot of people are doing Honda Cowie now, because they want to get into some of the, the diesel and the jet skis and all that. Yamaha has the Wave Runners and all. But so they would pick 2 manufacturers. They would do 24 weeks, 12 weeks in each manufacturer. Then they jump off into a 3-week performance suspension class. So we get into adjusting suspensions on the different motorcycle and 4-wheelers, side-by-sides, and dirt bikes and sport bikes, for race conditions. And then they'll have a 3-week course called Performance and Drivability, and that's where they get their dyno jet training. So they'll spend 3 weeks working dyno, flow benches, but the students actually learn how to run the dyno before they leave here. So
that's amazing. And all of this
they pick out the brands they want.
That's amazing. And all of this is a combination between classroom and hands-on in the shop. You've got it
is going to be mostly hands-on shop time. However, in any hands-on training environment, there's 3 parts to it. And you probably experienced that when you went to Wyotech. There's the part where they show you how to do it, and then there's the part where they turn you loose and let you start doing it yourself. Okay. So instead of putting them in a classroom for the first 2 or 3 or 4 months, learning it out of a book, we actually have them on a laptop. You're going to spend an hour a day watching the videos and participating in the online class discussions. And then you're going to come in and spend 4 hours a day hands-on in the shop. So it is mostly hands-on shop time. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I'm just listening to you with all these different programs available. It makes me want to go back to school and learn some of this stuff. It just sounds fun.
The other thing, Jacob, a lot of our students, a lot of them are actually doing a longer program. So they're doing multiple brands. And so that we have a 60-week program where they could do like maybe Harley Honda or Harley Yamaha or any combination of those, or it might be 3 of the metric brands, Honda, Kawi, Suzuki, or Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki or Kawasaki. And then when they graduate with an associate's degree of occupational studies. And they didn't have to take any academic classes. There's no English or history. It took us years to get that approved by the Department of Education. So it was a long time in the works, but yeah. So now someone can actually graduate from MMI, not with just the credentials, the certification, but also with an associate's degree as well.
Dealers, get ready to accelerate your sales with MotoHunt Marketplace. For a limited time, we're offering a free trial to powersports and motorcycle dealers to showcase your inventory where it matters most. MotoHunt isn't just a platform. With our unparalleled Google-esque search technology, your listings climb to the top of page results, capturing the attention of motivated buyers without the need for a bidding war. We'll send direct, qualified leads straight to your CRM or inbox. Get more visibility on your in-stock units and convert more sales is what MotoHunt Marketplace offers. Your inventory deserves the spotlight, and with MotoHunt, that's exactly where it'll be. Sign up today for free. Visit dealers.motohunt.com/fixit. That's dealers.motohunt.com/fixit. That's FIXIT to claim your free trial today.